And thank you for another week. Thank you for joining me for another week of Lunch Break Learning with Coach Shaquan. I have said in my previous intros or short statements, I should say, that I'm assuming you know me if you're here. And I'm like, okay, I start thinking about that. I'm like, well, because what would Coach tell the people about the word assuming, right? And so assuming is the lowest level of knowledge. And so let me not assume and just simply introduce myself. My name is Coach Shaquan, and I study how people communicate, connect, and show up in personal and professional relationships. I have been coaching, teaching, speaking, leading, checking BS, checking belief system for about 11 years professionally. And lunch break learning was something that dropped in my spirit to have a space for people to take a pause during their workday. The conversation is what I hear is, I'm working on me, I'm working on myself, I'm working. And I'm like, well, let me aid in that and give you some tools and some resources and some strategies that can really help you to be in progress with your work and working to progress to whatever the next stage you want in your life and relationships. And so today's topic is what's your worth? Okay. What's your worth? So I like to make this as interactive as possible given the space that we're in. So I'm going to ask if you would use the comment box or the chat box. And if you have questions that you want to put in there in terms of for me privately, just send it to me. Or you're free to share with the group. I just want to be able to kind of answer any questions that you may have during our time together. So the first question I have is the title. How much are you worth? If I asked you, how much are you worth? What would you say? How much are you worth? Ooh, this is one of those questions. And I'll tell you, when I am either working with clients one-on-one or teaching other classes, I'll ask this question and I get a lot of a variety of answers. So I just see someone here put a lot. Yes, I get a lot. I get priceless. I get millions. I get billions. I mean, too much to say and everything and all of these words. And secretly, I chuckle inside because I'm like, oh, I am about to check some BS around here around what does that mean? So when we use words like that, or how about this? Let's start from the beginning. We're going to define what worth means. I'm a words girl. Again, if you are just joining me or being familiar with or stumbled across me or somebody told you how dope I was, you was like, okay, let me go check for myself. And I love words. And so I like to be clear on what the definitions of words are. So let's look up the word worth. When I look this up, and this is in Merriam-Webster is my trusted source, wealth or worth is monetary value. It can be something that is measured by qualities or by the esteem in which it is held. Um, the definition that stood out to me that really got me thinking about this, how much are you worth, was deserving of. Deserving of. I'm gonna wait just a second. Deserving of. Worth means deserving of. I'm like, okay. So when I ask the question, which we're putting in the chat here, or we're responding, what or how much are you worth? And I get a lot. And I see everything God has for me. And again, I see priceless, and I see millions, and I see billions. And I go, okay, well, if worth is deserving of, how often do we accept less than we are worth? All right. If you're saying a lot, how much is a lot? Because to one person, a lot could mean a whole lot, like a large amount. And some people can say a lot and it can be a small amount. So we're looking at a subjective word when we're talking about things like a lot and even everything, and even the word priceless. And so our next word that I want to look at is priceless. How often have you felt or thought like I'm priceless? Like there is no amount of money that can be put on how much I am worth. Hmm. So let's look at priceless. Priceless means having a value beyond any price. Okay. Having a value beyond any price. Okay, coach. So I can be priceless, right? There's a value, right, beyond any price. And so we're going to break this down a little further and we're going to say, well, what does the word price mean? Okay. So price, several meanings, the amount of money. So we're talking about monetary value, right? The amount of money given as a set of consideration for a sale. So when we're thinking about our price, right? If we're priceless, we're really not thinking about money, or are we? Right? When we begin to think about worth, right, and the quality of, and the word that I'm using here or the definition is deserving of, can we really tie that to any monetary source or any monetary amount? So we want to look at that and say, okay, if I'm really thinking about how much I am worth, let's think about what I give away or what I give up based on what I believe I'm worth, or what I accept based on what I believe that I'm worth. So I'm going to go and I'm going to tell you a quick story because I'm a storyteller. So how about that? Yes. I did not realize what I was worth until probably right as I was approaching 40. At the time of this recording, I am 46. Okay, pause because my birthday is coming up. Come on, Taurus season. Yes. So I'm almost 47. And on this road to 50, I do reflect back, okay, when I was headed on that road to 40. And if any of you are in that age range and you can remember that transition that happens when you are approaching 40, you begin to feel like things are different, things are changing. We begin to sometimes, right, begin that discovery of self, or that journey of self awareness and self discovery. So I was on that journey, and I remember feeling like I wasn't worth having the husband and the marriage that I had. Okay. So we're going to take this from the bedroom to the boardroom and everywhere in between. So I'm starting in the boardroom with my intimate relationship. I didn't feel I was worthy of this man. Prior to meeting my now husband, I wasn't in the healthiest of relationships, right? I had met some guys, there was the high school boo, and then there were, a college boo or two. And, really finding myself. And so when I met him and he was all of these wonderful qualities and all of these things, first of all, I thought it was too good to be true because what man, I had never met a man that had like a real job and like really went to work and at a college like I hadn't. And I really did not believe that I was worthy. And so that carried on through our dating and in the early years of our marriage because I felt like I had to prove myself. So I really didn't have a set amount or a set any knowledge or awareness of how much I was worth. And so I began to do things to prove my worth, to prove my value. We'll discuss value in a minute. And it ultimately cost me. It cost me my confidence, my womanhood, my esteem, my courage. And while my husband was consistent in being who he was, because I had created the BS, the belief system that being with such a great man was too good to be true, I began to self sabotage myself. And then I felt even less worthy, right? And again, it started costing me more. So it wasn't until I began to really sit back and ask myself that very important question: how much are you worth? That it really hit me that I had been looking at it from a different lens, a lens that was unhealthy, a lens that was jaded, if you will, uh, and based off of my past experiences, my past hurt. If you listen to our last conversation on what did we talk about last time? When will your good be enough? And I mentioned sometimes we can be full of our own shit, right? Shit in Coach Shaquan land, standing for shame, hurt, insecurities, and truth. I was full of that shit, and that shit cost me, right? It cost how I showed up in my marriage. So it cost me happiness. It cost me fulfillment. It cost me peace, right? It cost me opportunities to grow and to be and to really experience the fullness of what my marriage had to offer simply because of the worth and the value that I believed there I saw in myself. And so when I'm asking you that question, how much are you worth? Is it possible that your thought process or your belief system is tied to a monetary value or a lot of things full of 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 and I'm thinking of like a lot in everything. Like, what really does that mean? What does priceless really mean? Because if I say that I'm priceless, yet I accept people's behavior, right? I accept people's less. I accept people crossing my boundaries. I accept working at a job or a company that does not honor and see my value. So if I'm accepting those type of things, how much am I really telling myself I'm worth? So let's start with going back. We defined price, we defined priceless, or talked about priceless. We talked about worth. Let's talk about value, because these are often words that people begin to kind of misconstrue and mixed up when we talk about price and value and cost and worth. So when we think about value, if we're thinking big picture, the definition is the monetary worth of something. Okay. The monetary worth of something. I want you to think about value in the sense of how much of usefulness or importance something is. How useful or important is this thing? And if we can switch our minds to think about that from value, again, switching from monetary, what it costs, how much does it cost? How much is it worth in terms of cost? We're thinking about the things that really, truly we are desiring and we're looking from out of our life and relationships. So I want you to take a moment, and as we've defined the word price, worth, and value, answer that question again. How much am I worth? How much am I worth? How much am I worth? When I explored this question for myself, I started to find answers that didn't really align with what my BS was. I realized I was worth peace. See, if I say priceless, priceless doesn't necessarily give me a real visual, right? It doesn't make me feel it doesn't it for me, right? And you let me know if this resonates with you. Saying priceless or saying a lot or saying everything sometimes makes my mind feel that that's not attainable, right? That's too far off. Yet when I look back and I said, you know what, I'm worth peace. Peace felt like something that was obtainable, something I wanted, something I desired, right? I was worth love. I was able to put a value to love that had nothing to do with price. Oftentimes we find ourselves in personal and professional relationships and we don't know our worth. And when you don't know the worth, you will work or push yourself or place yourself in situations and we don't even realize what we're getting in return. This is why I'm coming to you today and I'm saying if we do not take the time to really define what worth is to us as individuals, right? Really understanding the value in terms of the definition we just gave, right? The importance or usefulness of who you are and what you're offering in the relationships you're in the spaces that you're in. So let's think about where you are professionally. Think about the role you play, the organization you're with, the job you do on a day to day, right? And I want you to jot down and think about, what is my value add to this space? What is my value add? What usefulness or importance am I adding to this space? Hmm. Hey, coach, I never really thought about what value I'm offering. I just know I get up and go to work because I need that check. Right? I need to be able to pay these bills. I got this, I get this. And so then your mind starts going through all of the needs, right? All of the things that you gotta. Did I just use the word gotta? I did. And I will use it again. Let me use it in the right context, right? So we think about all of the things that we want to accomplish and that we need to get done that has monetary value to it. And so we start working and doing and less focused on who we are being, the value we're adding, and if this is the place where we were called to serve. Now pause. This is not a conversation to tell you to knock something over and tell them people that you about to quit and you about to go off because coach has said that coach told me, right, to look at my value, and I looked and I realized that the value of me being here wasn't right. So that is not what this intention is. However, there is a point where we must stop, pause, and be honest with ourselves about ourselves. If you are not adding value to the space that you're in, then how much is that really worth? Okay. So let's turn that back around to a question to yourself. If I am not adding value as I just described, right? If I'm not adding value, or I'm unsure of the value that I'm adding to this space, and we're talking about your professional space, why am I here? And what might I be lowering my worth for, right? What I'm deserving of because of my shit. Oh, coach, you're gonna make me just, oh, coach, I'm gonna be thinking about shit for so long. And yes, right? All of the shame and the hurt and the insecurities. And yet that truth is peeking out at you. So another thing that I always say in these conversations is I am going to share with you 3 to 4 foundational principles every single time we get together, right? I want to give you something that you can actually use, a tangible tools, and that is on energy, right? I say a lot of people talk about energy. I teach it. We're going to talk about belief systems. We're going to talk about barriers and fears. Let's stick with those 3. I said 3 to 4, but I got another one that we ain't ready for that conversation just yet. Ooh, yes, it gets deeper. Okay, so let's just say, and I'm going to talk about your shit. We'll just add that in there for the 4th one. So when we talk about energy, we talk about 2 types, anabolic and catabolic. Anabolic energy is healing, constructive, and success focused. When we're doing our best, when we're feeling our best, we are in that place of anabolic energy. We are less stressed, and our body says, okay, let's pour out or distribute anabolic hormones that produce growth and focus and push you in a place of being your best, doing your best, feeling your best. The other one is catabolic energy, as I like to say. Catabolic is draining, destructive, and fear-based. And when you're overworked, overstressed, overwhelmed, when you're feeling low, when you're in what I say, the box, right, at that lowest level, and you're in the darkness, that catabolic energy says we got to do something to push through. It releases chemicals, yet it eats away at all of your healthy cells. And so that is, again, when the headaches, the backaches, the heartaches, the stress, the anxiety, the worry, the overwhelm, the fear, all of those things that make you feel like you have the weight of the world on your shoulders begins to perform or tell you what to do, who you need to be, or what we need to do to go into survival mode. Are you worth that catabolic energy? Are you worth the stress and the anxiety and the overwhelm that you've placed on yourself? Sometimes, right? Depending on the situation. Oftentimes, we do a lot of self sabotaging. And so, going back, how much are you worth? Are you worth that stress? Are you worth that overwhelm? Are you worth playing small, being less than you were called to be, being less than what you deserve? I have a comment here that says, I am worthy of happiness, being treated respectfully, to have peace, kindness, love, to be valued for what I bring to the table and what I do. I bring people and teams together to move work forward. That tells me more about how you see yourself and the value you add in spaces than saying priceless or everything or a lot. Because again, the mind will tell you that those things are not attainable. Last time we talked about comparison being the thief of joy. It's in the word. And in just case, again, for people who may be joining me for the first time or not fully familiar with me, I am a Christian. And as for me and the humans in my house, we serve the Lord. Okay. So I am thinking about what the word says in terms of what our value and what our worth is and how we are called. Okay, praise hands, yes. And how we are called to serve. Well, if I'm thinking that I'm worth a lot, yet I'm accepting, or it takes very little to move me to do, to be something that I'm not wanting to be, or into spaces that feel more catabolic than anabolic, then ultimately I'm telling myself a lie. And I need to check my BS. Check my belief system. The belief systems that you've created that have got you thinking that it is okay for you to allow someone to speak to you in a certain way. Even let's go back to the bedroom, depending on the type of relationship you have. If you are in a relationship where you are feeling the catabolic energy, right, that's in there, is this worth it? Is this worth me losing the happiness, losing the respect, losing the freedom, or having very little? Or is it worth fighting for the freedom, the happiness, the fulfillment, the respect? And that is where you begin to know when and where the work shall begin. But it's difficult for us to have that understanding when we don't have the basis of understanding simply what our worth is. The last word I would like to cover with you today is cost. This tickles me because in everyday life, right, before we get ready to buy something, most often, the first thing we want to know is, how much is that going to cost? How much it costs? Somebody say, oh, girl, you want to go to the concert? How much it costs? You want to go? How much does it cost? Right? Even when there are people seeking services from me, the first thing they say is, I want to know what your prices are. I want to know how much a coaching costs. And I immediately say, okay, we got to switch this back, because cost, okay, can mean a loss or penalty incurred. It says loss or penalty. Let me get this straight. Loss or penalty incurred, especially in gaining something. Ooh, stay with me for a minute. Cost is the loss or penalty incurred, especially in gaining something. I am here to share with you today that the life and the relationships you want, the happiness, the peace, the freedom, right? Those things that you truly want, it's going to cost you. It's going to cost you something. And what we must be mindful of is making sure that whatever it is costing you, that the outcome of what you're gaining is worth it. In your journal, in your writing, in your reflection, I want you to jot down, what is it costing me now? And you fill out what it is. You can put the word it is a placeholder. What is it, air quotes or blank, costing me? If I'm thinking I'm not good enough, what is that costing me? Our first conversation, our first lunch break learning was, are you strong, stressed, stuck, or stretched? What is it costing me to be strong, to be something for everyone, to hold on to the load and the burden of everyone else, and not understanding that I'm worth letting go? What is it really costing you? And how much is it worth? I sent an email out, a professional email, and I want to share this before we close today because I sent it and I didn't. It was one of those God things where it's like, oh, it's on my heart. I didn't ask if the people wanted to be coached, or if they wanted to see anything. It was truly on my heart. Uh, and this is about self-care and stress management. And I shared in the midst of busyness, please be mindful and intentional to pause. Whether it's taking a 5-minute break, stretching, drinking your water, or taking 2 to 3 deep breaths, you must prioritize the stress management because these small acts create the capacity for blessings and can reduce your burdens. You see, our goal is to be well to live, not worked to death. How much are you worth? And what is it costing you to get it? I want you to take a deep breath in and let it out. Let's take a deep breath in and let it out. And one more deep breath in and let it out. My loves, for those that are joining me live, for those that may be listening to the replay, you are worth more than what you believe. I want you to truly consider identifying those things, what it's worth, and be intentional to honor yourself in all spaces, from the bedroom to the boardroom and everywhere in between. What's your worth? How much is it costing you? And where can you find those places of peace, happiness, forgiveness, love that you're seeking and desiring? Thank you so much for joining us on Lunch Break Learning. I'm actually going to end our conversation here. So you got to join live if you want to hear the next one. So hang on here if you're on live. I'm going to end this. Thank you for joining us, and we will catch you next time. I'm going to have a quick conversation with those who are live, and I'll see you. Peace.